Hi, my name is Harlan Blackburn. I'm a student at Full Sail University, and right now I'm taking a physics class, and I wanted to talk about physics of an engine. These physics don't just apply to engines. We're going to deal with volume, compression, flame travel, thermal, leverage, a lot of different things that are here that apply to everything else. But I am a first-person shooter by preference. But I do like car racing games as well, and it happens to be a hobby of mine too. So, an engine, how that applies to physics. Well, they call an engine an air pump, basically because you're filling the chamber, compressing it, creating force, and pushing it out, and that creates the horsepower. But it's more than that. It's not just pumping air, because if you just pump air in and out, it wouldn't do it. So you have to put fuel into it. And then by igniting the fuel, you're changing the physics. You're creating a hot gas, and that presses the pistons down that turn the crank that drive the car. But there's a lot of things you have to think about when you're building an engine. And if you're going to do something like Burnout Game or Need for Speed, where you're going to let the people modify their cars as a prize, that they can buy modifications, then you have to think about what that's going to do to the car, how it handles, the weight. So, basically, we're dealing with an engine is an air pump. Well, here's the cylinder. This has nothing in it. It's completely empty. Now you have to add a piston to it. When you add a piston, now you're talking about swept volume instead of just static volume. So the piston takes up some space, and it basically moves up and down. It helps draw in the gases. It pumps them back out. So that's the basics of this. These cylinders are capped off, of course, with the head, and the controlled environment is the valves opening and closing for the air to go in and out. But there's also two different kinds of compression. And compression is the swept volume, how much you can actually put in this engine at atmospheric pressures, 14.7, perfect day, sea level. That's all the air that we have around us, the pressure we feel around us. That's the best this engine. The camshafts, timing on those when they open and close, can actually change your compression because of valve overlap. And valve overlap is the time that the intake and exhaust valves are both open at the same time. So it doesn't create an exact cylinder volume that you could measure on here and calculate out what the fill is. And by changing that, you can actually change the performance of the car again. So if you have somebody that wants to put a different camshaft in their car and race it, it could make it better or it can make it worse. Now, one benefit of that is if you're going to supercharge an engine. And supercharging is forcing more air into the cylinders than is available from atmospheric pressure. And the way you do that is you compress it. You run another air pump. Okay. So there's different types of compressors. This one right here is what they call a Roots compressor. This is a GM 671 blower. And if you can see here, there's two rotors in here, and they look like gears where they mesh together. Well, in the early days, they were straight. And what happened is it would compress the air and cause a surge because it was on and off again. So then they went to a twisted fashion, and by twisting it pinches the air because it doesn't completely seal it off, but it does compress it down and then forces it into the intake, and the intake passes along the cylinders when the valves open. So if you're letting somebody modify their car on your games, you don't have to know all this. It just depends on what kind of modification you're going to have it programmed for. You know, are they going to get more horsepower, 5 points more horsepower, more top speed, all that. But if you want to run a real specific, realistic game, you would take a program like Desktop Dyno, something that takes all this into consideration, all your changes, all your modifications, and you might even let them blow up their motor, let them over modify it or not do it the right way. Use it as a training tool, a teaching tool. So that was my idea for the physics. There's a lot more things we could talk about. There's a couple of ideas I had, but this was here, it was handy, and it's a pretty good prop. So, thank you very much. My name is Harlan Blackburn, and have a nice day.